Welcome again to Bay St. Louis, Mississippi, a small town of about 10,000 along the Gulf Coast that we know well.
We were here just days after Katrina slammed ashore, and our cameras captured the images of devastation then and 20 years later.
Obvious here, this is pretty commonplace. This kind of tells it all that we don't have a whole lot left.
These are among the first images our cameras captured of the sheer devastation Hurricane Katrina brought to this small Mississippi coastal town of Bay St. Louis, Mississippi. Homes washed away, piles of rubble dotting the landscape. Now, 20 years later, the homes have been rebuilt. They are better and they are stronger. Drive down this beachfront road in Bay St. Louis today and you'll pass house after house. Most of them were built after 2005. When we traveled this same stretch days after Katrina barreled ashore, all we saw were steps to nowhere, everywhere. The homes essentially disintegrated when the Category 3 hurricane pushed a 20 to 30-foot wall of water inland. That same surge of water submerged the Davis family store on August 29, 2005. When the floodwaters finally receded, that one-stop shop tucked away in the middle of a neighborhood served as a lifeline for that community cut off from food, water, and power. Our cameras captured their despair.
We just got to help one another.
When we paid a visit to the Davis family store today, we found the parking lot empty, its doors closed for good.
All you do is call a FEMA line, give them your information, they put it on a computer. We did this 2 weeks ago.
When FEMA finally did show up to this Gulf Coast town in the weeks after the catastrophe, the crew set up in the parking lot of a Kmart store in a strip mall. Dubbed Camp Katrina, survivors filed in seeking assistance to restart their lives. Today, the Kmart is long gone, the sign down. The building now houses a hardware store. Bay St. Louis, a town apart, is pieced back together. Over the course of 2 decades, it's rebuilt key connectors. The town bridge once again carries traffic across the bay. After Katrina, the only part of the bridge left standing were the pylons. Much the same for the vital train bridge. It's been back up and running for years now, carrying people and cargo back and forth. Take a walk or ride around the town today and you'll notice a few remnants of Katrina. Empty lots where houses once stood, steps, the only reminder of what happened. While residents and tourists have returned, they can't help but remember what upended their lives in 2005.
We can never, ever thank them enough. I could never repay them.
When Judy Howell's home was inundated with water, it was students from East Tennessee who helped her family tear it down to the studs to rebuild. We passed by that house now 20 years later, and it stands fully anchored by the chimney that saved it from Katrina. You are looking at something that did not exist pre-Katrina. This is a marina built to bring back the tourists and the residents.
200 slips in that marina and harbor. And one of the things we want to do again is to rewind the clock 20 years and check in with Chief Meteorologist Todd Howell, because as we all know from covering this storm, it was a signature disaster that is still making history today.
There's no doubt that Katrina was a wide-reaching, devastating hurricane.
This is what it's like in downtown New Orleans right now.
But to those who look at the radar, charts, models, and data, it was simply the perfect storm.
Powerful, large, devastating storm. I'll never forget when I saw the size of Katrina as it was coming through the Gulf, and right in the central part of the Gulf, 175 mile per hour maximum winds, Category 5 storm, one of the biggest, strongest, largest hurricanes I've ever witnessed.
Chief Meteorologist Todd Howell remembers Katrina not just for its size, but also its stunning, almost perfect formation.
You look at it and you would say it was a thing of beauty on the one hand. It was perfect, large eye, huge storm, took up all the central Gulf.
The nation had been watching Katrina for days before it hit the Gulf, growing larger and larger by the hour.
My brother and sister-in-law were in Miami at the time. Katrina went through as a Category 1 hurricane. I remember my brother Tripp saying, if that was a Category 1 and only a 1, I don't ever want to see anything stronger than that.
In the 20 years since the devastation, meteorologists have newer, better ways to determine a hurricane's strength.
The technology, the computing power has greatly increased. The forecast accuracy has been increasing. Modeling, data, everything's much better now than what it was. However, it's good news, bad news. We can see it coming better. The bad news, we can see it coming. You know, it's both. So there's still the impacts on coastal areas that can have a devastating impact when you get such a large and devastating hurricane like Katrina was.
But Todd says the best advice he still gives to this day is not to wait until the last minute during a serious storm.
We can't keep storms from coming our way, but what we can control, what we can do, is get out of harm's way.
2005 was an epic year when it came to hurricanes. Katrina, just one of them.
We have followed for 20 years the rebuilding effort here in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi. We have more on that coming up.
We are marking 20 years after Hurricane Katrina slammed into this coastal town of Bay St. Louis, Mississippi.
A lot of the locals had to make a big decision, stay or go. Here's why some stayed.
Golf carts are the preferred way to get around Bay St. Louis, Mississippi. The tourist community, about 45 minutes outside New Orleans, sports beach views, casual bars, and art shops, known to locals as a flip-flops kind of town.
We even have a business named Flip Flop. So yes, definitely it is a flip-flop town. It's a golf cart community. It's the place everybody wants to be because it's just so much fun.
20 years ago, Hurricane Katrina shoved the beach into downtown, uprooted the main drag, erased homes, businesses, and upended life in this coastal town of 10,000 strong.
The storm surge from Katrina rose 20 to 30 feet here in downtown Bay St. Louis, not quite to the top of the Hancock County Bank, but close. It was one of the only buildings to survive that hurricane 20 years ago.
This is the county courthouse, and this is Main Street, Bay St. Louis. This is the Main Street Methodist Church.
Tish Williams came back after the storm to see her mother's home gone. The head of the Hancock County Chamber says any doubts about rebuilding ended after hearing encouragement from one of her 8-year-old daughters.
Many of the thoughts that I had were, why am I raising my daughters in a devastated community? And the answer came back to me from my own daughter. She said, Mom, it's not the buildings that make the town, it's the people. So that really summed up why I was doing what I was doing.
Hurricane Katrina, 8/29/05, 20 years ago.
We are walking a couple of blocks inland from the main drag in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi, and this is the first business to reopen after Katrina, an art gallery.
All you saw was New Orleans and the devastation there, and we were off the radar. Then we just started work because we weren't going to leave.
Why weren't you going to leave?
Because it's my home and I love it, and we just had to plow through it and do it. And we had a saying, no sniveling, because we just had to be tough. It's a very emotional roller coaster to this day, you know, and it's going to be hard when we're coming up on the 29th.
Janice and husband Mark lost friends in Hurricane Katrina, but both found a deep desire to reopen their studio.
We had about 20 people sleeping here with us, and they would get excited if a rain shower came, because everybody'd run outside and kind of wash off what they could wash off.
So when you look at it today, is it back?
Oh, big time back. It only took us 20 years to get it back. But yeah, there's a lot of heart and soul put back into it.
It was a recovery driven by a spirit no storm could whisk away and fueled by volunteer cleanup crews from all across the country, including Knoxville.
And the whole country helped us. We're so grateful.
In the 20 years since Katrina, you often hear one word locals use about the transformation of their beloved town: progress. A new 200-slip marina, a thriving Main Street, and just recently, a new stop on the Mardi Gras line, a passenger train promising to deliver thousands more tourists, meaning lots more flip-flops in downtown Bay St. Louis.
And Robin, another sign of progress in this community are the businesses. We have eaten at several while we've been here in Bay St. Louis. Here's a look at that side of the comeback.
The finishing touches are underway at the newest restaurant set to open in the Gulf Coast getaway of Bay St. Louis, Mississippi.
We can move on, we can move forward, we can rebuild.
Anthony's Restaurante is Jolynn Trapani's second restaurant in this town, and it serves as a symbol of what's possible after a hurricane named Katrina ripped apart the entire community of 10,000 20 years ago.
Pure devastation. Yeah.
Is it hard to think back 20 years?
Yeah. You know, I always say that you know you're at ground zero when the President of the United States stands 10 feet from your old building and calls it ground zero. And he not only did that, but President Bush was there for 2 years in a row, and you know, that was ground zero.
It truly is amazing, and we'd have never thought we'd be where we're at today. You know, the people believe in it. We've been very fortunate to have people come in and make investments in our city and all.
The mayor of this beach and bar town credits volunteers from afar and government money for helping keep Bay St. Louis afloat and set up for future success. Look no further than this new harbor with more than 200 boat slips.
We stay at a 93+ occupancy rate in there, which is truly amazing.
That's been a difference maker.
The owner of PJ's Coffee says 5 years in, her shop is seeing new traction from tourists and locals, another sign of progress here 2 decades post-Katrina.
Where does Bay St. Louis go from here?
Ooh, who knows? The stars are the limit. I mean, it's only getting better and better. The community's growing stronger, new generations coming in.
When you drive around Bay St. Louis 20 years after Hurricane Katrina, one thing that stands out are all the big trees. And that's one other thing that's given this community hope. Also a tourist draw. Those giant oaks dating back to the 1800s are a rare sight this close to the coast. A throwback in time in a town where almost every other man-made home or business has stood for fewer than 20 years.
They fed them, they took great care of them within a month after the storm. And that kept these trees still with us, and they will be with us.
A fixture here in downtown Bay St. Louis was this restaurant. For years, Trapani's stood until Hurricane Katrina blew it off the map. But in 2006, it was the first restaurant back, serving as a catalyst for change here in downtown.
We're not only signature for downtown, but at this point, we're one of the oldest seafood restaurants on the Mississippi Gulf Coast.
Yes, Trapani's was Jolynn's first restaurant in Bay St. Louis. Inside her second, the new tiramisu martini, fresh-made pastries and upscale cuisine hold new promise 2 decades into the recovery from a historic hurricane.
When you look back from 20 years ago to where you are now, it's amazing. I knew that we could do this, but when you see it, I never knew that it could unfold to become this.
One of the things the head of the chamber said, Robin, was so extraordinary after the storm. She lost her father, and he wanted to celebrate his wake inside their home. It was gone, so they took the entire family to the steps and celebrated him.
Just an incredible story. And coming up, the story of a woman who rode out Katrina in a tree. And then we're taking you to a museum where they remember and they celebrate 20 years later.
Some of the survival stories you hear in Bay St. Louis from Hurricane Katrina are just jaw-dropping. I want you to take a look at this live oak right here. Now, picture that tree, only look at this. This was one just like it. and it served as refuge for one woman and her friends, as well as her dog. Nikki Moon survived at least 3 to 4 hours in the floodwaters after Katrina, hanging on to this tree. Here's her story.
My name is Nikki Moon. I survived Katrina. I don't even like to say the word, but I survived that storm of August 29, 2005.
How did you survive?
In a tree. This tree that was located about a quarter of a block back.
Tell us about that day.
Well, we started early. There were 7 of us that were staying at the Baytown Inn, and 2 dogs, my Scotty and a friend's dog. And so that morning, 3 of us got up about 5:30 or so just to kind of see what was happening. We had stayed because the house, the original Baytown Inn, was built in 1899, and it had withstood, obviously, years and years of storms and hurricanes. And so I felt very comfortable there, as did the rest. So about 5:30 we got up, and it still like it was going to go to New Orleans. It's the other reason we stayed, that they were going to get the brunt of it. We could see the waves. We weren't getting much, but we could see the waves. So we drove around, and everything was all boarded up like it should be. Very few of us dummies were still here. And then got back to the inn, and about 8:30 or so in the morning, at that time the kitchen in the inn faced away from the water. It was at the back of the house. And I could see my Jeep starting to float. Then the water started seeping in the front door of the inn. This area is on a bluff. We're about 24 feet above sea level, about the highest area really along the coast. And the house was raised about 6 feet. And then there were 12-foot ceilings. So you kind of get a picture of how high up you are. So when the water started coming in the front door, around the front floor, first floor, we decided we should go upstairs. And we went up to a room number 5, which was in the very back of the inn. The inn at the time was an 8-room, 8-bath, beautiful old home with a great dining room where I served breakfast every day, and a nice living area for people to enjoy. So room 5 was really the smallest. It was up in the back. So this wonderful couple that lived down the street, they were there with us. Another friend and her husband, and then my 2 buddies, Doug and Kevin. Somewhere around 9 or 9:30, the tidal surge came in. And at the time, there was a cute little restaurant here called Dock at the Bay. And we think that Dock at the Bay was hammering us, that it was getting beaten down. And that surge, we think, was probably about 40 feet, because I screamed. I was at the door of the room. Kevin had been on the side of the house, and when that surge came up, it tore the whole first floor out. He jumped, I guess, across the landing, got to us in room 5, and there are powers that made that one little room survive. And we had the older couple, Dick and Nadine. Kevin got them either a piece of floor or a piece of roof. She couldn't swim. He wasn't going to leave her. So the 2 of them were spooned on this piece of whatever with their bag of medicines, and they went off that way in the water and the debris. I thought they were gone, but they were found that afternoon by the sheriff's department. My other friend and her husband kind of went different directions, and Doug got to this tree, which was back that way. He got up with his back to the water, kind of waved for me and my Scotty, and we paddled to the tree, and he pulled us up. And I was around that limb on my stomach with my dog underneath me, and then Kevin joined us, and he was facing the water. That tree was really big. At that time, we cut it down to bring it over here. We were probably 20, 25 feet up, I guess. And Kevin would yell when he saw a wave coming, and we'd all duck. Doug was saying the rosary behind me. I kept praying that my dog would move or I'd lose her.
How long did you spend in this tree?
I'm guessing 3 or 4 hours.
What was running through your mind?
Well, I thought I was going to die, first of all. I figured some wave was going to just push us off, and that'd be it. And then at some point, I figured my mom had passed away a long time ago, and I think she was sitting on my shoulder saying, "It's not your time. We're gonna get you through it." It had to be her. So she watched over me. And then finally, it got really, really cold, and the eye passed. And once the eye passed, Doug said, "We got to get down somehow." And bravely, he jumped down, didn't break anything. The water had receded somewhat. And then I got down with my dog, and then Kevin got down. And then we went to this pink house over here, Peach House. The first floor was pretty demolished, but there were stairs. And we went upstairs, stole some dry clothes, and looked at the mess. There was no street. The inn was 100% gone, completely gone. There was just rubble.
When you see this tree today, what runs through your mind?
Oh, and I hope it will stay here a lot for many, many years, so that people know how it saved us.
What a story, Nick.
Yeah, it was, today and this week, it seems like yesterday. 20 years is just amazing what we've gone through here. I hope that this will remind people to come here and to enjoy and get to know all these terrific people. We call it a little Mayberry because it is. It's now filled with more restaurants. Our beach has grown. We've added this fabulous harbor that we never had before. I hope people will come and see how special it is, how dedicated this community is to growing in the right way. People have asked me, would you stay again? You'd think I've learned my lesson, right? One would hope. I do have a bag that is always prepared. The only thing I'd change is I do add new batteries for flashlights, and that's pretty much it. I'll watch the weather. I'll be cautious. I'll be prepared. I will not put myself in that much danger again.
The man who walked this community through the worst of times following Katrina was Mayor Eddie Favre.
Let's look back at his interview with our colleague, Russell Biven.
What's your feeling on that, the reaction that you've got?
It's difficult to explain it. I mean, to describe it. We've had people that they're pouring their hearts out to us to take care of our people. Unsolicited, and it's everything from pickup trucks or people with their cars and just something that they could fit in their trunks. Anything from supplies to the water, to food items, clothing, anything that they've been able to put their hands on, they brought it to us, and it's unbelievable.
Unfortunately, Mayor Favre died last year, but this community remembers him. There's actually a plaque in honor of him just up the road.
His brother is now the mayor of this community, and we spoke with him about his brother.
One of a kind. He always liked to say, he did it his way, and it wasn't, but it was Bay St. Louis's way. He loved the city, everything about it. Again, he was born and raised here and all, and he put his whole heart into it.
A signature of Mayor Favre was wearing shorts all the time, refused to wear pants until this town came back. He even wore his shorts to a White House function in a tuxedo. That's how dedicated he was to seeing this town through.
While this community is so happy to celebrate 20 years post-Katrina, they don't want to forget what happened. And there's a museum where they can remember and they can celebrate the progress they made. This building that holds many stories inside has a story of its own.
And it was the only building standing on Coleman Avenue after Katrina.
The 1920s schoolhouse was battered and bruised, but not enough to be rebuilt. So for Waveland, it seemed only fitting to turn it into a museum, commemorating that tiny town's recovery from the monster storm.
So this is Waveland, and this is actually our railroad tracks, which is...
Bernie Cullen is a retired nurse, now volunteer, and tour guide at the Ground Zero Museum.
And our mission is really about the future generations that are coming, because we all know, but if we don't tell our stories, they're never going to know.
The first story comes as visitors walk through the doors.
The blue line is our water line, okay? So 11 to 12 feet of water was in this building. So we tell people about that when they come in, but they're always up there by you. So we tell them to come step down here and really can appreciate how high it is.
The timeline of Katrina then takes you around the perimeter, starting days before the Category 3 hurricane made landfall.
Basically, it was around that early Sunday when people around here really took it seriously and decided it was time to leave.
Monday, August 29th, 2005. Katrina barreled inland with the bullseye on Waveland. Pictures document the little left behind after the wall of seawater receded.
So when visitors come in, you and I are standing on somebody's house, what they came home to, the slab.
Fragments of people's lives salvaged are on display, hanging by a thread.
But this flag was on this pole over the Veterans Memorial. My favorite's the catfish that have caps on that say Category 1, Category 2.
Cullen says this is a place not only to remember, but to learn. A whimsical mural teaches children how to evacuate ahead of a hurricane. A simulator mimics the sights, sounds, and feel of a tropical storm. It's not meant to scare, but to prepare for the inevitable next hurricane.
So we need to teach them about the past, okay, in order to prepare for their future.
And they offer healing.
Everybody's got something that Mother Nature slams you with. And we talk a lot about, oh, how did you recover from that? And we share stories.
Cullen hopes people walk out of the museum doors feeling a sense of rebirth, much like this Gulf Coast town experienced just days after Katrina.
And all of a sudden, all these sunflowers just started popping up everywhere. And it was like, oh my God, we didn't have sunflowers before. But what we realized after we did some studies, and sunflowers are symbols of hope.
Bernie, our tour guide at the museum, said she has marked anniversaries in this way. 5-year mark, there was hope. 10-year mark, there was progress. 20-year mark, rebirth.
A lot of people are witnessing the rebirth here in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi, and more are welcome. This is a tourist town, and they're ready for you to come visit. You can find more of our coverage after Katrina, 20 years, streaming online at WBIR+. Thanks for watching.